call the meeting to order at 6:35, and this is budget meeting number 4 for the township's 2019 budget. And just before I call for approval of the agenda, I'm going to call for the approval of the agenda as amended, and I'm going to add item 2A, which is basically just some opening remarks that I want to bring to the attention of council. So we'll call it 2A, opening remarks. And so can I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended, please? Deputy Mayor Deschamps, and seconded by Councillor Cameron. Those in favor? Aye. Motion is carried. So just before I go on then with 3, there's about 4 things that I just want to bring to the attention of council. And so the first thing is a letter that was sent to me on February the 1st from the AMCTO, that's the Association of Municipal Clerks and Treasurers of Ontario. Dave Grant, graduation from AMCTO's Executive Diploma in Municipal Management. On behalf of the Association of Municipal Managers, Clerks and Treasurers of Ontario, I'm extremely pleased to announce that Dave Grant has successfully completed the intensive process to graduate from the Association's Executive Diploma in Municipal Management. We believe that this is a tremendous accomplishment and should be regarded with pride by your municipality. The next paragraph goes on to talk about the association and what it does. I'm going to skip that paragraph. The third paragraph, the Executive Diploma in Municipal Administration is the most comprehensive career development program designed specifically for Ontario's municipal managers. Graduates of this diploma program are informed leaders with a comprehensive understanding of the complex and interrelated components of municipal management, and who can immediately implement their knowledge and thus have an integrated and positive impact on any municipal corporation. Dave has successfully completed this rigorous evaluation process to graduate from this diploma program. We hope that you and your colleagues on council will join with us in congratulating Dave on this significant achievement, and that's why I'm reading it. That's what we want to do. So congratulations, Mr. Grant. We'll be doing, I wanted to do this tonight because this just came. I'm going to be repeating it on Monday night's Admin Finance Committee meeting, and on Monday night we'll have a little scroll to present to Dave as well. The other thing I want to mention about Monday night is we're going to have another presentation as well. About 2 months ago, I had a call from Team Industrial, the chap that's in charge over there, named Matt Wallace, advising me that they were about to start a new business and kind of explaining what it was going to be. They didn't want to make any formal announcements at that time. Asked me to stop by in a week or so, which I did, and at that time they were kind of stalled. But anyway, 2 days ago he phoned me, told me that the signs are now up, so they're announcing that Team Truck and Equipment Rentals is now fully in business at their site on Commerce Road. They're a fully certified repair shop on Commerce Drive. They have technicians on site. They have the latest fully diagnostic equipment. They've everything from motorcycles to highway tractors. They have a 24-hour service truck, and they tell me that he will have an official opening date to be announced, but I asked him to come on Monday night. We're going to make a little bit of a presentation to him to just recognize the official announcement, try to get him a little press in the profile in the press. So that's going to, I asked him to stop by around 10 after 6 or so, and we'll just give him 20 minutes or so before the council meeting. We'll do the presentation to Dave as well, try to do both things. Okay, so now just one other thing before we proceed with tonight's budget. I just want to spend a minute bringing council sort of up to date on where we stand at counties. This is county council budget. We've been all the way through it, one end to the other. Numerous staff presentations, I would say probably pretty close, over 4 budget meetings, pretty close to 10 hours of staff presentations. Now, just to kind of put you in the picture as to what was involved there, got to get this right. At the county level, the assessment roll is going to be $10.9 billion this year. And that's with the current year's phase-in and growth added. Now that represents, for the United Counties, assessment growth of 4.08% overall. Most of that assessment growth coming from Edwardsburg Cardinal. Now, as you know, there are two components to increases in assessment. The first component is called the phase-in component, which results from the third year of the phase-in of the 2016 base year. So the phase-in alone is going to produce $914,000 of additional revenue to the county, and the growth component is going to produce $592,000 of additional revenue to the county. So that increase in assessment alone is going to produce $1.5 million of additional dollars. In addition to that, the budget proposal from the staff asks for a 1% increase in the tax rate, which would produce another $400,000, which that meant that in total, the levy would increase, the amount of dollars that the county takes in would increase by $1,910,000 rounded, 4.91%. Now I just want to tell you the good news part of that. The good news part of that is that the very first decision that the county council made at either the first or the second budget meeting was that we would commit to funding the third year of the increase in paramedic service. So we agreed that we would add, I think it's 8 new paramedics and 1 new supervisor. Now what that does is that changes several stations from 12-hour-a-day stations to 24-hour-a-day stations. We have the vehicles. It's just a question of adding staff and adding hours. So we made that commitment very early on. Now that commitment was, I'm going to get it wrong because I don't have the number. That commitment, no it is. That commitment for the increase in the paramedics was $1.4 million on a full year basis. But we're not going to be able to hire them for the full year. By the time counties gets them all hired, it'll be April, May, and June. And so the significance to this year's budget will be somewhat less than the $1.4 million. I have the number, but I just didn't bring it with me. So that would have chewed up a big part of that $1.9 million. But nevertheless, at Tuesday's meeting of the county council, county directed back to staff, there will be no 1% increase in the tax rate. You'll have to go back to your operational budgets and find ways of getting us out from that 1% increase in the tax rate. So that's still going to produce $1,500,000 more dollars, but the tax rates at county will remain the same. So that just sort of brings you up to date of where county is.
Mr. Mayor, how many paramedics? 8?
I think it's 8, yeah, plus a supervisor.
Yeah.
And then, by the way, just so you know, every year we buy 3 new ambulances, and those 3 new ambulances are around $430,000. So this year we're buying 3 new ones, but we're keeping the best of the old, and that's just going to be used as a spare. So we're going to increase the actual vehicles by 1 spare. So there's a lot in the paper today about response times, And I want to tell you that this increase in the paramedic service that we started in 2017, and then there was some change in 2017, and then change in 2018, and then the big bite in 2019. That change was started way back as a result of a service delivery review in 2015. And in 2015, they predicted that by 2020, the call volumes would increase by 4%. And that's why we needed these extra people. Well, in fact, between the time the study was done and the end of 2018, our call volumes had already gone up by 8.1%. So as the population gets older, the need for the ambulance service gets more calls, and we have to respond. So, don't want to take any more time, but I just want to put everybody in the picture on that. Okay, so now we're at item number 3 on the agenda, which is disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. Any disclosures? No disclosures. Item number 4 on the agenda is 4A, 2019 draft budget revisions. And I guess we've got those in front of us. And how do you want to deal with these now? I've been through the package, and I think what we'll do is just maybe have the treasurer remind us of what changes were made, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure. Through the chair, I've done an information item that kind of verbally summarizes, but it might be helpful for council or committee to actually look at 4B1, because that's basically the capital projects list from before.
Okay, so that's from our last meeting?
Yeah, and I've basically deferred, added a column called deferred capital, which is all the capital items that were decided at that last council meeting to defer and take out of the 2019.
So we gotta find 4B1?
4B1.
And you say 4B1 was on the capital page?
Yeah, it's called 2019 capital projects, and I've added an additional column called deferred capital. So in words in the information item, after that meeting of the 31st, the total deferred capitals is 1.123.
Just give us a second.
Yep.
Sorry, I got so many papers here. Which one is it again?
4B1.
I've got it here someplace, I just have to find it. Okay, I got it, sorry.
So
Go
the
ahead.
total deferred capital projects was 1,123,000, leaving taxation supported capital of 1,745. So you can just see what we took away and what we still have in the budget and still how it's funded.
Sure, you're looking here. I've got 4B1 in front of me, it doesn't seem to be the same as what you got. How come I don't have the column that says deferred capital?
Mr. Mayor?
Is that an old packet?
This is on the new one.
You looking at the-
Well,
This is the new, this is on the new one.
Yeah, but, was it with this week's package?
Yes.
Yes.
Here, I've got a spare.
I have it. Okay, now I got it.
Okay.
Jeepers, excuse me.
No, that's okay.
Okay, go ahead.
I thought that was the simplest way to define the changes that were discussed at the last committee meeting. So that, I don't think we have to go into too much depth, other than that's just what I was trying to identify what had been deferred in that particular, after that particular meeting. One other change that I have in the information item is that in the 2018 budget, we had $41,960 set aside as an amount carried forward for the Mary Street Outlet project. After all of the final costs were done, the United Counties did that project, and the total cost to the township for that project was only $21,000, leaving us with a $20,000 amount kind of sitting in an account that's used for funding. So we can use that to offset our Johnstown project in 2018, in 2019. So that helps our operational budget by bringing it down by $20,000.
Okay, so you're gonna just take the 20 off, you're just gonna take 20 off the 30.
Off the 30, correct, out of
Okay.
operations. So that brings our operational budget down to 2.54. It was at 2.89. So it's a little better there. Although even with all those changes, we're still seeing, and you'll see if you look at the summary financial report, we're still seeing a deficit of $436,235. That would equate to a 7.82% tax rate increase if we maintained that supported by tax. We have certainly all kinds of alternate options to fund those projects, even if we keep them in the budget, by borrowing either by ourselves or using from our reserve funds to fund those projects. But before we make those decisions, I think there's still several outstanding items that need to be made aware of. We know that OMPF is still not, decided. But one of the thoughts we had is that if the additional transfers to reserves in 2019 is an additional $62,000. So if we see a drop in our OMPF, we'll just not reduce. We won't put that money into reserves. We'll drop that down.
In other words,
and offset.
whatever the reduction is in
OMPF.
Municipal Partnership Fund,
We won't put it into reserves.
Okay.
So then we don't really have to stall our budget, waiting for the province to decide what they're gonna provide us in.
if we
transfer
agree to that
payments.
concept.
Yeah, if we agree to that concept.
Okay, so and right now, what is the amount that we're anticipating or proposed to put into reserves?
The additional amount, and that's on page 2 of the summary, the additional amount was $64,952 over 2018's budget.
Okay, so, now, you're saying, where is that again?
So if you go into the draft summary budget, or budget summary, there's a second page, and at the top it's capital transfers to reserves.
Yes?
So in our 2019 draft budget, we have 340 in the budget. Over 2018's budget was 275, so there's an additional amount of $64,952 that we are proposing. But if we see that there's a drop in the OMPF, we will just take those transfers out.
Okay, so then what we would be transferring would be the 275.
275, back to the original 2018 value.
Okay, all right. So in other words, we would take the reduction in the OMPF from the 64,
Yeah,
or from the 340.
correct.
Well, let's see what the reaction is to that concept first, because otherwise we're gonna want to deal with the potentiality of a reduction in OMPF in a different way. You're suggesting one way we deal with it. What is the feeling around the table about dealing with it that way? Whatever we see OMPF reduced by the way, what is our OMPF amount?
The 2018 value is 851,400.
851,400.
Correct.
And so if it got reduced by 30, we would just be getting 821,400, and we would take 30 off the 340.
Correct.
Does everybody sort of go along with that concept of dealing with OMPF? Looking for comment around the table here.
It's just gonna reduce the amount that we're putting in the reserve.
That's basically it.
Yeah.
And we're comfortable with it being, we don't know what the value is. You've heard, you don't think it's gonna be that great. I've heard 6.5%. So I think 6.5% still ends up being more than the 64 that's there, so.
What's 6.05%?
The number that I heard that that everybody's going to get off of their OMPF is 6.5%.
Okay, so
It's
just,
gonna be reduced by that much?
Yeah.
so
So
what,
6.5% this year, and I heard 5% next year.
okay, so what is six,
Rumor, of course.
what is the 6.5% of 851?
55,341.
How much?
55,341.
55,341. So we would still be putting 10 or so thousand in additional.
Yeah.
We would still be, so we'd be putting, oh yeah, so we'd be putting 275 plus 55.
Yeah, 60.
Yeah, okay, all right. So there's comments around the table.
I'm comfortable with that.
Everybody comfortable dealing with that way? Okay, so we have consensus on how to deal with OMPF.
Before we go into
Yeah?
through everywhere that I've looked, and I know we've had this discussion before, but I still don't see anywhere that the cannabis dollars are included anywhere. Will they get included? Will they not get included? Will we see them? Will we not see them?
Through the chair, we've seen $5,000, the initial $5,000 payment already to the township. I have not included in the budget. It's really unclear as to what those monies are meant for. What I've done right now is put them in the liability account along with the municipal drug strategy money that we had set aside, just as a holding place card until we get a little bit more information with respect to what that.
So did you show them as revenue and an offsetting expense then?
No, I'm
Or
not showing them at all.
Eh?
No, I'm not showing them in the budget at all,
Okay.
either as a revenue or an expense.
So you're basically regarding them as an off-budget item for now,
Yeah,
with a concept of how to work them back. Now, the problem is, well, when we come time to set the budget, clearly you're gonna have to show them as revenue. If you wanna show them, I mean,
Revenue
we're not gonna pass the budget without that $10,000 being shown. In and out, or in and on a shelf or someplace, but in my mind, we gotta at least acknowledge publicly that we've received it. So I'm prepared to let it sit for now, because I think it's gonna be a while. You've got the 5 though.
we've got the initial 5, which was expected in January for sure for all municipalities.
Yep,
The fact that we have opted in, there's potentiality for more money, so I don't know what that would be.
yeah.
You know, so I can place card a value in, and then we can make a discussion, have a discussion of where we will put that money. We have to have an understanding of that particular amount of money is slated for a particular purpose, so if we use it for something else, we would, you know, we really have to stand by our decision making, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's clear, it's earmarked money.
Yeah,
The thing is, it's, the first 5 is here, the other 5 is guaranteed. And then what happens beyond that depends on whether the province goes beyond 100 million. Yeah. Okay, so that was your second question, so we can park that sort of for now. And then what else have you got here for issue tonight?
well, actually, the second question was Deputy Mayor Deschamps, but my number 2 point is that right now, of course, we don't know whether we are successful for the County Road 2 top-up application. And we're proposing that if this project doesn't get funding for top-up, that we defer that project and use the formula-based funding to do capital work within the township. So that gives us an additional amount of $188,754 to use on other capital besides that water wastewater project.
Except I have a little bit of a problem with that. Clearly, that County Road 2 project is gonna come at us sooner or later. Now, it's difficult, because that money, the amount that we get from the funding component, the formula component, what is the amount we get from the formula component?
The formula-based component is 188,754.
188?
754.
188,754. And what was the amount that we are eligible for under the top-up? I know it was in our presentation to the minister, but I can't remember what the number was, 1.6. So we're eligible for number one, another 1.6 as top-up. Why wouldn't we be taking that 188 and putting that into a reserve? And I'll tell you why I'm asking that. I'm hoping that if they don't fund our top-up this year, that they'll fund it next year. One of the pitches that we made in our presentation is, please don't make us submit another application. Whatever applications you've got, review all of those applications. If ours doesn't make the cut, it doesn't make the cut at all. But if all of the applications that you've got are worthy applications, and you're only gonna fund this many of them in 2019, tell us that. But tell us you'll fund this many more in 2020 and this many more in 2021. Just don't make us keep submitting all these applications. I'm thinking that they're gonna be looking for a way to stretch out their cash flow. So what I'm saying, why wouldn't we take that 188 and park it for at least a year until we see what's gonna happen to our application for top-up? They may even tell us, we'll top you up in 2020. Go ahead.
Oh, that's totally a council decision. We get the formula-based funding. We're supposed to get the formula-based funding each year. So we'll have another 188 next year.
Yeah. If the program survives.
Yes, and that's kind of a big if, but I think the other thing that council needs to be aware of is that OCIF money is not earmarked for water and sewer, but we have consistently put that money towards water and sewer. The rest of the township essentially has not benefited from that money.
That's a touchy point too. That is a touchy point. Well, again, I'm prepared to park that issue for a number of weeks until we see just how things are shaking out.
But we haven't answered.
But I think if we're no further ahead with where we are with that application in, let's say, 3 or 4 weeks, I think the best way to proceed would be to just build a budget, assuming that we're not gonna get it, and go on from there. And then at that point, we'll have to make the decision as to what happens to the 188. What other issues for tonight?
The next couple items that we're talking about are vehicles. So the first one that is brought to point is the proposed excavator buyout. Staff would like to have an opportunity to do some additional analysis to ensure that the buyout is the best option. Looking at both lease extension or leasing a brand new excavator to see whether those options are better suited financially for the township. That would lower the initial capital and would just spread that cost over a little more palatable to spread it over 3 or 4 years as opposed to the 100,000 in this year. Similarly, we're thinking of the same for the public works vehicle as well as the crew cab for the fire truck.
Okay, so you want to park all 3 of those?
Right now, we don't. We just want to do some more analysis and bring back to committee some options of whether we do a full pay the cash up front or whether we do some financing options or lease options for particular
Alright,
equipment
so-
pieces.
Well, that's time, that needs time.
That makes time, yeah.
Okay, so, all right, so if we say, all right, we're gonna park those two issues, three, basically, well, the excavator, the crew cab,
And pickup.
and the pickup. So then where are we for the rest of the evening?
I guess the only thing I would want to bring back to committee is the very last page, which is the capital forecast sheet. And what I've done was to basically take whatever was deferred out of 2019 and move it to 2020, just to give council or committee an understanding that, you know, we may be deferring it out of 2019 and maybe making our 2019 look better, but our 2020 isn't gonna look any better.
Okay,
Ultimately, we're
but
going to
can
be
we
in the
just
same
stop there for a
situation.
second? In our 2019, we have a list of projects, do we not?
Correct.
Do we have a list of the projects for 2020?
In your one original package, there was a list of 2020 projects.
Okay,
Yes,
and was there a list for 2021?
correct, yes.
Oh, okay, so I haven't been there in some time. Has anybody else been there in some time? Can we take a minute and look at those lists, if we all have our stuff with us? So it's in our original one, way back? Is this the sheet that, or was this under the tab? Draft schedule of reserve and, no?
What page would that be from first?
From the very first package, it was all in kind of a written format, and it was capital for consideration sheets, so each department
Draft
had.
capital for consideration?
Correct.
2019 to 2021?
Right. But what I did in the last package on the 31st is I actually summarized those projects. So in the 31st budget document, when I showed you the funding strategy, there are some backup supporting documents, and there is a summary sheet of all of those
Where's the
projects.
summary sheet?
On the 31st, the meeting of the 31st, the last budget meeting that we had, where you saw that funding strategy.
Draft capital projects?
It was
Got
a
the
long-range capital forecast.
Long-range capital forecast, yes, right here.
Is that 4B2?
And it
That'll
was,
be page one in there.
No,
yes, it was 4B2 originally, yes. So it's flipped page to page 3,
page
which,
3, no,
Yeah.
I have page 1 and 2.
1, 2, yeah.
What did you say?
Look under 4B dot
Yeah.
dot, or
Yep,
II, and it's the third and fourth page in.
right.
Okay, is it the one called,
2019 long-range capital forecast, 2 pages.
right,
Capital,
one long, one wide?
Yep, that's it.
okay.
Okay, can we just have a look at which ones you would propose to slide to the right out of the 19s? And have you looked at it from which ones could slide out of the 2020 and out of the 2021? You haven't done that? Can you go through, the 2019 list just quickly? I've got the list that's sideways. And just remind us as we go down them what they are, quickly. And then we'll go down the 2020 column, and then we'll go down the 2021 column. Is everybody sort of prepared to do that or not? No?
But I'm sorry, I'm shaking my head, it's totally up to you, of course, but I mean, we did not anticipate having that conversation. I think there's a better way to present this that will make it easier for everybody to follow rather than flipping back and forth between papers.
Okay, so what would you suggest?
Well, I think the logical thing is to have that conversation at the next opportunity, whenever that might be. Give the treasurer an opportunity to prepare something that's understand. Easy
Okay.
to follow.
So then, where am I on my agenda for tonight?
That's the last one.
We're at the end.
Right at the end. Long Range Capital Forecast.
I think the setting of the next meeting is probably something that should be discussed.
Okay, well, from the number of things that we've talked about here, is there gonna be any time to do anything, changes between now and the 12th?
No.
I mean, that we had scheduled a meeting for, today's Thursday, we had scheduled a meeting for Tuesday. Is that gonna be worthwhile?
I think we won't have any more answers on Tuesday than we've got today.
So what are you suggesting then?
Well, I think it needs to be put off at least 3 weeks so that staff has opportunity to finish their analysis on this outstanding thing. And being mindful of the fact that we're gonna be a little short staffed for the next 6 weeks, we might even wanna postpone until even 4 weeks.
Until when?
4 weeks, March 7th.
March?
So we would, no, we scheduled 2 meetings. Oh, well, one was tonight and then the next one was the 12th. So we would be postponing the 12th to another date and then setting another one.
Yeah, and my hope is, my fondest hope is that we will get some answers on some of the outstanding
Questions?
questions by the end of February.
All right, so if we postpone our next meeting by a month, that would take us to March the 7th, is that what you're suggesting? Is that what I'm hearing? Okay, now, so how's the 7th? Does that work for everybody? Okay, so we'll put 6:30 on the 7th of March. That will then be budget meeting number 5. Now, what are you suggesting that we do about budget meeting number 6?
Oh, I think you should hold off until I'm back to have that.
Okay,
Rub it in, go ahead, rub it in.
well, I kind of agree with that, though. I don't think we should be going anything towards completion until CAO is back. And this, my book tells me that the CAO was back on the 21st.
And I really don't wanna have a budget meeting that first day if I can.
Well, I won't be here.
Oh, there you go.
So I'm sort of looking at something earliest possible for me would be either the 26th or the 28th. The 28th is the Thursday night. Thursday night, the 28th?
Would be good, yeah.
Okay, so we'll put 6:30 on the 28th for budget meeting number 6.
Mr. Mayor, could I just make a comment before we sign off?
Go ahead.
Well, staff, I'm just putting this out as a suggestion because I'd like to see what these changes in figures that I'm going to propose would do. Strictly as a insight vision. What I would like to see you do is reduce the, for the railing at the Gallup Bridge, reduce that by 101,000 and spend the 49,000 to do the repairs that we can do for $49,000. I looked at the bridge today, and there is one, out of all the uprights, there's one loose one, which just needs bolts tightened because it's not embedded in the concrete, as the east side of that bridge is, where the west side of the bridge is all bolted into the concrete, and there's one pillar. So I'd like to see that reduced by 101,000. And I'd also like to see the stormwater management, the Smith Road, I'd like to reduce that by 100,000 to 200,000. And I'd like to see where the where that leaves us sitting. And the reason I'm saying that about the stormwater is $300,000 was just proposed last meeting as sort of an arbitrary figure. Not sure of exactly what work had to be done. In fact, there was a comment saying it could be done for 200,000, or possibly done for 200,000. So I'd just like to see that reduced to 200,000, just to see where that puts us.
You're looking at the 4B1?
Yes, I am, Mr. Mayor. The Gallup Canal reduced by 100,000.
Yeah, yeah.
And reduce the 300,000 on the Smith Road culvert to 200,000. And I'd just like to see where that gives us.
Yeah.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, on that,
This one goes.
with
So
regard-
that would be basically cutting 300 out of the capital.
Yes, it would.
And if I may, Mr. Mayor, with respect to the Smith Road culvert crossing, the Director of Operations is already undertaking an analysis on that. So we expect to have that back by the February 19th Public Works meeting to let you know what
What you found out.
we
Yeah,
found out.
Great, super.
Yeah, we'll have that
Fantastic.
conversation then.
Right, but I'd still like to see it come in at 200,000.
We all would.
Sure we will.
Good.
Just for my own ignorance too, if we do the lease for the vehicles, they would go into operations,
Yeah.
and they would increase the operations by a slight amount over 4 years or 5 years or whatever it does, but it would completely remove it from this as well, right?
Correct.
From this side, so it's fair to say that the pickup truck replacement would go down by 55 for the fire department one, and it would go down by 20,000 on the other, further reducing that by 75,000 more, correct?
Mhm.
But it would have a small increase on the operations side,
Correct.
which if we actually threw the 10,000 in for the cannabis money in the operations, which it will be for basically bylaw enforcement, it might offset the cost of those altogether and not see any increase.
Wow.
Well, okay, so just before we get off this vehicle one, so what, and I'm kind of lost track of where we are with vehicles here, especially on the fire department side, but there was a proposal for a pickup truck, and then another proposal where we would buy a chassis and have the box made later.
$375 worth.
Yeah, so no, let me first of all figure, is that concept still on the table? It is. The reason I'm asking that is because one of the reasons you get to 375 is because the box is custom made. I'm wondering if, because of the nature of the way we're changing things around, we can't buy a vehicle with a box already made. So there's not custom made, but maybe it doesn't have to be custom made to suit the new purposes. And what I'm wondering, the reason I'm asking this is because, aren't you going to the Good Roads? And you know, I was at the Roma conference. There was a booth there from those people that build these vehicles, and I didn't stop by, but maybe it'd be worth stopping to see what they have in the way of off-the-shelf type of vehicles that would come close to suiting what we're looking for. Because I think if we found something that was off-the-shelf, where it wasn't custom made to our specifications, we might get it for a considerable amount less.
Are we talking about the tandem axle plow truck now, or the fire truck?
No, the fire truck.
Oh, the fire truck.
Just because there was a.
That's van one, is that right?
That's correct.
Is anybody else going to Good Roads?
I think the road superintendent is just,
Is the chief?
not likely.
No. Well, the reason I ask is because they do have a fairly significant, at least they did at Roma. They may not at Good Roads, I don't know.
And there is a chief's conference as well in May, so I mean,
Oh, there is, okay, and so all the people that build these things would be there in May. So to the chief, if I may, the 375, I'm assuming that number came from a previous purchase. Or, I mean, what was the basis of that number?
That number came from getting together with our guys and coming up with what we think we need for a truck, and then talking to a couple of different people that are in the business to give us a ballpark figure as to what we're looking at.
Okay, so was there any effort to try to determine whether there's a kind of a off-the-shelf type version that would suit the needs as opposed to having the box type structure designed and built to our specifications?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, so that's another possible route. I mean, custom made is expensive.
Mr. Mayor? We started out, we wanted a $375,000 truck to replace a van.
No, it wasn't replacing a van.
Replacing van one or whatever you wanna call it, the rescue
Correct.
one. Then we got a $55,000 truck added in here. We're buying a vet, $375,000 truck, why do we need another $55,000 half-ton?
That's for medical assist, I do believe, the Van 8, wouldn't it be? Medical assist in firefight and grass fires, et cetera?
The trucks we have now at Station 1, with the pumper only being a two-person cab in the pumper, we need additional seats to move people around. So the rescue van, Van 1, that will be our rescue van. That will be used for our extrication equipment, for all of our firefighting equipment, and to get manpower to and from fires. There's also a need just for a personnel carrier, for lack of a better term, a utility vehicle, like we've been using truck 8. The truck that we found was kind of at its limit as far as weight goes.
But when you go to a car accident, do you run Van 8? You take a pumper, obviously, and you do Van 1 and Van 8? Yes or no?
Currently,
Yes.
depending on the call, yes, they would probably all have to go.
So, if we, this 55,000, can we take that box off that chassis, the box that you have now, put it on this new one?
No.
Why?
I should ask, which box are we referring to?
The box that's on Van 8,
Truck 8?
Truck 8.
Truck 8, the box on Truck 8 is too small to use for a rescue van.
No, put the
You know,
the box on Truck 8 on the new pickup.
It's not required, the pickup truck is not required to have a box. Basically, Truck 8, we've been running Truck 8 as a rescue van, and the other van that was a rescue van as kind of a carrier for all the bunker gear.
That's Van 1.
Correct.
So the new $375,000 one's gonna take all the equipment that's in both of them.
That is correct.
And firefighters.
Yes.
How many will it hold?
Which?
The new $375,000 one?
It will probably hold 5.
It will hold 5?
So what are you gonna use for medical assist? Like, most of your calls are medical assist car accidents.
Correct.
So what are we gonna use for medical assist in car accidents? Van 1?
We would probably be using the new rescue van. Rescue truck.
The Van 1.
Correct.
Why do we need Van 8 then?
Because we need to be able to move people around. We've
So
got,
why can't we move them around with the van that you have now?
so you're saying keep,
I'm saying not buy a $55,000 van. And use the pickup that you got from the CN. Continue the truck, because all you're doing is taking people around, you said.
Correct.
You already unloaded all your stuff.
Correct.
And how many people can you fit in that van? 6?
Truck 8?
Yeah,
4.
4.
Yes.
So you still got everything handled then?
We do, but I'm still uncomfortable with the maximum weight rating of the truck and having that at its maximum with no people in it. Because it's got a big box in the back, and I know when we have a call, we're gonna have all kinds of stuff to come back to the hall, and everybody's gonna throw it in that truck.
Can we, this is a technical question, maybe John, excuse me, a technical question that maybe Councillor Hunter or Councillor Dillabaugh can answer. Vehicles, gross vehicle weight is really determined at the point of manufacture depending on a lot on the suspension. And I know that suspensions can be changed by changing springs. Is there a possibility of having the existing van upgraded to a higher GVW by changing springs and suspension?
It's already been done, hasn't it? Didn't they take it to Benson's?
I believe the springs have been upgraded.
Yes.
Okay, but that didn't change the GVW, they just changed the springs.
Correct.
Yeah, so, I mean, often on a vehicle, the springs go bad on you and you just have to change the springs, but it takes an engineering solution to actually change the GVW, and they might specify a completely different type of spring arrangement. And so I'm asking Councillor Dillabaugh, Councillor Hunter, technically, are those kinds of things, can those kinds of things be done?
I think it can be done, you have to have them certified, gone through a mechanical shop to have them reevaluated, recertified, so I don't know if they can save us any money to get it done that way or not, but my problem is if it's running and it's just over its gross vehicle weight now because it's carrying all the extra equipment. And so if we're buying all this new truck to put all your equipment in it, I don't know why it's gonna be over its gross vehicle weight with four people riding in it. That's all you're riding in it. The equipment goes out on the other trucks in the first place, it should come back on the other trucks.
You want it in here?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe that used to be a CN vehicle.
Correct.
I think if it was a CN vehicle, it would be at its limit. It would be sprung to its limit.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, yeah. I think that's just the way they buy vehicles.
Anyway, we're parking a number of other issues. Maybe we can park this one too then.
I think if we have to, if we decide we have to have this ever vehicle, I just don't see a $55,000 price tag on it for a truck to carry people back and forth to. We don't need a Cadillac with a truck to drag people back and forth. There's a lot of crew cab trucks out there that don't cost no $55,000, so.
Well, if it's only taking 4 firemen, I think the van that we have, Van 8, is good.
I think too, so.
You said you took all the equipment in, is that right?
That is correct.
And you're saying it's still overweight?
It is at its maximum weight, it is not over. It's rated 8,800 pounds, and with 4 firefighters in it, it is at 8,800 pounds.
And the problem they're having is that they feel it in the steering.
How many wheels? 4 or 6? 4.
Not a dually then.
It's not a dually.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, if I may just remind the committee that CN vehicle that you're talking about is a 1996.
Yeah.
A lot of life left in it in any case. And to Councillor Hunter's point about the $55,000 truck, he and I did have a conversation about that the other day. And certainly I understand that you're talking about a crew cab truck, 4-wheel drive. You can go into a dealership and buy one for $45,000. But then you have to have all the light package and everything put on it to turn it into a fire response vehicle. So that's where the $55,000 starts to come in.
Oh, in the upgrade to fire.
But can't we buy a 1-ton and take that box off there and put it on that chassis?
I don't know what the advantage would be in doing that.
Well, the advantage for me, I'd rather pay the $55,000 or $65,000 for Van 8 this year, put the $125,000 for Van 8 in the 2 20 and pay the balance in 221, because that van has only got 34,000 kilometers on it, and there's been no mechanical problems with it. So the 375,000, we can defer it for 2 years, 2019, 2020 to 2021. Buy the 1 ton and put that box on the 1 ton. Does that sound, and use it as your medical and accidents?
So what would we be buying then?
I would say a 1 ton truck, and take that box that we have that's already custom made off of that van 8 and put it on the new 1 ton.
So all we would need is a chassis, a 1-ton chassis.
Right, and defer the van 8, the 175 to 2020, and the balance of 2021.
Okay, so then the purchase for 19 would be a 1-ton chassis.
Right.
Because you can buy a chassis without a box or anything on it.
Mm-hmm.
You can buy them right from the dealership that way. Have you looked at that? To the director?
Yeah, through the chair, if that's certainly a direction that you wanna go, we can certainly investigate that to see what would be involved in taking that box off, right? It's certainly not something that you just pop off and pop on another one. It was specially made for that particular unit in 1996, so.
But the firefighter,
It's unlikely that a 2017 chassis is identical to, in a make as in 1996. So I think there's probably a fair bit of work to get that mounted on there properly, but I think you have to give a little bit of time to the fire chief to at least try to get that investigated and get an idea.
Yeah, and we would need
for a number.
We would need an analysis of the box.
That's
as well.
correct. That's correct.
Okay, so we're parking a bunch of these items for a month anyway, so.
Can I throw 2 cents
Yeah.
in before we move on? The option that you know makes a sense to me at this point is I like what's been brought forth by the treasurer for the finance and the lease and to be added into the operations, and then it removes it off of this one for now, and it basically spreads it out over a 4-year period. So you're taking the 75,000 and dividing it by 4, and it really makes it small. It probably is what we're going to pay in upgrading or taking a box off and adding it on to the other one, and adding maintenance costs on a 1996 vehicle. And you've got 2 new vehicles that aren't going to cause any headaches, and hopefully they're driven really well and treated really well, and they're going to cut the maintenance costs. They're going to take away the time and the effort that's going to be put in on the other ones, and they're going to be deferred or divided up over 4 years. Why we're wasting hours of time talking about this is ridiculous.
I can see leases in some parts as far as deferring the roads truck from purchase this year over to a lease. I don't see the point in that, because
You're talking about this road superintendent's.
Road superintendent's truck, as you mentioned our last meeting here, you lease a vehicle, you pay out for the damages at the end of it, and there's not gonna be nothing left of the roads truck. We're gonna pay more in the end than we will to buy it in the first part, so.
Yeah, that's the trouble with leases. The guys that are in the leasing business.
Fire department, their trucks aren't run that much, they're washed and not in bad road conditions. I can see working a lease agreement on them, or a long-range purchase agreement or something on them, that we defer it down to even on the $375,000 one. I'd be, if it's proved we have to have it, I'd sooner see us just go right out and buy it now and take a 5-year loan or something on it and pay it off over five years, because there's probably going to be 10 years left after that, and it's still going to be a good truck, and that lowers down the outright pay on it.
Well, once you make a decision that like the road superintendents have done. Once you make a decision that you're going to lease it, you might just well lease it for the longer period of time. Because they're gonna get their money back out of the vehicle over the period of the lease, one way or another. So if you lease it for 7 years instead of 4, you're gonna have as much truck left at the end of 7 as you're gonna have at the end of 4, and your payments all the way along. And there's no point at the end of 7 years turning back a truck that's 7 years leased. There's no point turning it back. We'd just well buy it out at that point.
For the fire department's trucks, they last 20 years, most of them. So, like, I don't like borrowing money to buy something either, but when you have something that lasts that long, the interest rates are low now, it might be better to take a loan on that truck for whatever we can get the best rate on for 5 years, 7 years, whatever it is, and then we just have a small amount to pay every year for, then
Well, you know what that
10 or
basically
12
is?
years after that is paid off, and they're still gonna have a truck for 10 years or more afterwards, so,
And that way, basically what you're doing is leasing it from yourself.
yeah.
That's basically what you're doing when you take a loan against the vehicle.
If we read suggestions 3 and 4, again,
Well, hang on.
the suggestion is lease or finance them over that amount of time, guys. So we're not talking about paying them out from the start and then doing that, we're talking about actually either leasing them from a dealer or purchasing them from a dealer and spreading it out that way. So it's already there, it's in items 3 and 4.
I'd be in favor of buying instead of leasing.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
That's what I said.
No, you said buying instead of leasing.
That's what I said. I said buying as well.
The question is financing as opposed to
Financing as
leasing.
opposed to leasing.
So,
Basically, it's financing both ways. Paid
Well,
financing, lease too, so.
if I may, Mr. Mayor, give you the example of, we purchased a new truck for environmental services last year. And we took GMAC financing for that. So we bought it, but we took the financing through the car company. And if we can get 0% from a dealership, I mean, that's.
Yeah. Okay,
This Roma, or the Good Roads Convention, is it coming up shortly?
yeah, sure.
And if.
Another option, and it would be to, if Councillor Delabois could pick up some information, as you said, from those dealers that have booze at that thing. Not that you're committed to it, but at least you could see what they have to offer.
Well, I mean, it's all information gathering.
Yeah,
I mean, that's just,
but if it's coming up shortly, and that's another piece of information we have within the next month.
well, there's a number of items that staff are gonna work on here. So I think we might just well wind this up here now. And we know we're gonna meet in a month. And I think there's quite a number of items for the staff to look at, so. I'm trying to find my agenda here.
I might, Mayor, to our fire chief, when you go to your fire chief's convention there, I assume they have all the fire hardware suppliers and dealers are all at
Yes, sir.
thing there. I know a few years ago, I think the last fire engine, the second last fire engine, well, I forget which year it was, we were on the council here, that we needed a fire engine, or chief at the time went to that conference, and we got a fire engine that they had already built, that we got, saved a lot of money on, because they built it for display, and they drove it around, I think it had a few kilometers on it, but we got a deal on it. Is there any chance that one of this van that you're looking for, that some company wouldn't have built one of these for display purposes, that we could?
Or somebody may have reneged
Yeah.
at the last minute.
Might get a real good deal on?
That conference isn't until May though, right? That conference is in May. Okay, let's park this whole thing right now and give the staff a little bit more time to look at about 5 or 6 items that we've kind of put on the table here tonight. I think we're all trying to do what we can so that we're getting the best bang for the taxpayer. So let's park this, and to be honest with you, I think the staff needs a bit more time. And I'm looking at my agenda, and I think basically we're at item number 5. Are there any questions? And,
Just me.
Go ahead.
So when we're, I'm gonna go back to the trucks for a quick second. The pickup trucks, the 2 pickup trucks that we're looking at, are, when you come back with them, does it make sense to have spec'd them and gotten estimates or gotten prices from a couple of different dealers, so that if we're ready, we can just get this done and put to bed at the next meeting, so, you know, we're not asking you to do that the next time? That makes sense, like reasonably, we know what options and those sort of things that they need to have, and we can ask a couple of dealers for some quotes on a pair of them.
Now, if you're talking, one would be the road superintendent's half done,
Yes.
and the other one would be the one the fire
Or
department.
crab that, yes.
Okay,
And that,
so,
just get the specs from them as to what they need and get quotes, you know,
Well,
actual
in
Actual
other words,
quotes,
put
so
out
we
an
know what we're
actual
talking
tender.
about.
Well, so what you're talking about, basically, if you want competitive prices, is that we would prepare a tender spec, and we would put those tender specs in the hands of 4 dealers or 5 dealers, and ask them to respond to the spec, along with their financing package, in-house financing package, or, well, give us your in-house financing package, but we don't necessarily say we're gonna use it.
Yeah, and I mean, in all honesty, it's, yeah, we would go to Riverside, talk to them about GM products, we'd go to, you know, the local Ford, closest Ford dealership.
The only problem that I have with that is that I don't think we should be talking to them. I think they should be,
That's poor phrasing on my part, I'm just saying that, you know, there's a limited number of places to go, and I don't think you're gonna save anything by spending a lot of time creating tender specs. I mean, you have a general idea of what you need, but you don't know, you might find you get to GMEC and they've got, or GM, and they've got a 2018 on the lot that fits the bill well enough, and it's a lot less expensive than what you spec.
Yes.
But I don't think we can limit it to just going to a GM
Yeah,
and
no.
Ford dealership. I think we got in trouble a few years ago by going to one dealerships and
I just
not
don't like
other
it.
ones that are in the area that supplies, just because it's not a Ford or a GM.
I mean, I just don't like that business at all.
Okay, well, are we not gonna end up there though, next meeting or the meeting?
No, let me rephrase, I agree with where you're going, but what you're saying, what you're really saying is, get a package ready for us.
Yeah.
The question is, how do they put the package together? I think the package has to be properly put together by means of a tender specification in writing that you give to 5 dealers, and they respond to you in writing. Not, you don't go in and peddle this guy's prices with that guy.
And I understand that, Mr. Mayor, but I guess my point is, I think we know how to proceed on this.
Okay, so, but I think where the deputy mayor is coming from is what we really want to do is get these 2, I'm gonna call them high priority, pre-budget approvals, ready for the next meeting. Best possible deal on 2 of those vehicles. That means that issue, those 2 vehicles, is off the table, pre-budget approval, right? That's where you're coming from.
I think also, Mr. Mayor, that our fire chief has said this $375,000 one, this is just a rough estimate of kind of a few things that they thought they needed, and they went to a couple of dealers. I think maybe we should have them spend a little more time getting exactly what he wants there and getting a little bit of better idea of what the actual cost is of this, because we don't want to be sitting here deciding we'll go for $375,000, then find out when he puts it out for tender, it's $425,000 or something coming back, so.
The problem is you can't go to the market twice. You can't go out with a tender on a vehicle if you're not really prepared to buy, because it isn't fair to ask a manufacturer, how much is this vehicle? What should I be, what's the budget for this kind of a piece of equipment? And he thinks he's got a sale, so he gives you a price. Then you go to the marketplace, and everybody knows what that price was, because that was public.
Oh, I don't mean getting as much that as get the exact specs of
Yeah, well, you're back to,
what he needs and then talk to the dealers around and see if they've got any chance, there is any vehicle sitting there that they've prepared that might be on the market.
you're back to, well, anyway, let's, we've left the staff with a number of questions. Let's leave it there. I'm about to call, there's no closed session, I'm about to call the motion to adjourn. I need a mover and a second.
Certainly.
I'll take Mr. Robertson and Councillor Cameron. Those in favor? Carried.